All right. Hey, everyone, get ready because we are diving deep today into love languages,
Ooh, love languages.
using Gary Chapman's work as our guide. And this is not just for the romantic relationships out there.
No, absolutely not.
This is for all relationships. This is relationship gold
Absolutely it is.
that we're going to unearth today.
Yeah, for sure. The concept is that we all have a unique way of feeling truly loved.
Okay.
And it's not just, as you said, just for romantic relationships. It's for everyone. And it goes way beyond just saying, I love you, which we all know can get a little repetitive or just
Yeah.
not have the same meaning all the time.
Right. You can say, I love you till you're bleeding in the face. But if you're not speaking the language of the person that you're saying that to, it's
Yeah.
kind of like talking to a brick wall.
It can feel like that.
Yeah.
And, that's what Chapman identified as these unique ways of experiencing love. He called them love languages.
Love languages. I love that.
And there are 5, which we will go through today. Words of affirmation, quality time, gifts, acts of service, and physical touch.
Okay, so let's break those down, starting with words of affirmation. I mean, I gotta say, a good compliment can just like totally make my day.
Oh, yeah.
But going deeper than that, the source material talks about it being not just about hearing nice things, but it's about those words reflecting true understanding and appreciation.
Yes, it's about being seen for who you are, not just for, generic compliments. It's about your character or your accomplishments. Like instead of just saying, you're a great cook, you might say, that spice you used in the pasta tonight was incredible. It totally made the dish. You're being specific.
Yeah, you're calling out those details that really show that you're paying attention. And on the flip side, the source mentions how lack of these words can actually be interpreted as a lack of love.
Right, especially for those whose primary love language is words of affirmation. It's so important to remember that.
Totally. Okay, this next one I'm going to need your help with because I think I need to hear this probably more than anyone else. Quality time. I mean, we all need quality time with the people we care about, but for some, it's like the most important way that they feel loved. Help me understand this.
Absolutely. So for quality time, I think a really relatable example that the source brought up was girlfriends, like women,
Yeah.
who can talk for hours and hours and hours. It's like we get energy from that.
Yeah.
But it really is deeper than just hanging out, right?
Right, because I can be in a room with someone, but not really be present.
Totally. It's like either just scrolling on your phone
Exactly.
or are you actually engaging with the person. And a good way to think about quality time is, are you present with someone? Are you actively listening?
Right.
Are you engaging in the activity together?
Like when Jesus would hang out with his disciples. Like it wasn't just him preaching at them all the time.
Yeah, and it was that foundation of their fellowship.
Exactly. Okay, so we've got words of affirmation, we've got quality time. Next up, gifts. Now, this one can get a bad rap, I think, for being all about materialism.
Oh, yeah.
But the source material is really clear that it's not about that. It's about thoughtfulness.
Cool, man.
It's about the message behind the gift. I mean, I remember the example they used was a parent, like keeping their child's, crayon drawing that they made in first grade and they've kept it all these years. It's not about the monetary value of that. It's about the sentimental value.
Absolutely. And they even use the phrasing, I was thinking of you, like a
Yeah.
tangible, I was thinking of you. So often the gift itself is symbolic of the thought and effort. It's not necessarily about the gift. It's about the thought behind it. And we see a beautiful parallel in John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son. It's the ultimate expression of love through giving.
Wow, that's such a great point. It's not about showering someone with expensive stuff or anything like that. It's just those little gestures that show that you care. Maybe you picked up their favorite coffee on the way home from work, or you saw a book that you knew they would just love and you grabbed it for them.
Absolutely.
And speaking of those heartfelt gifts, I'm curious, do you keep like little mementos and things that people give you?
Oh, 100%. I have like a box and it's full of these little trinkets and notes and things.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's like a little time capsule.
Totally.
Okay, let's keep this love train rolling. Acts of service. Ooh, this one got me. This one, when I was reading the source material for this, it really hit me because it was that image of someone who is like totally exhausted, but they still get up and do that one chore so that their loved one can like rest.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, absolutely.
It just makes me tear up.
It's love in action. Like for people whose love language is acts of service, actions speak louder than words. It's about going out of your way to make someone's life a little easier, lighten their load, And we see another great example of this in Jesus washing the disciples' feet. He humbled himself to serve those that he loved.
That's a really striking visual, and it's not about being someone's servant. It's just it's those helpful gestures. Maybe it's doing the dishes after your, partner has had a crazy long day at work, or offering to babysit for a friend so they can have a night out.
Totally.
It's just those little things that say, hey, I see you, and I want to make your life a little easier.
And sometimes it's less about those big gestures and more about those consistent everyday actions. Like maybe you make the bed every morning, or you take the trash out without being asked. Just being attuned to the needs of those around you and taking the initiative to meet them.
It's about being a teammate.
Okay.
So we've covered 4 out of the 5 love languages. Last but definitely not least, let's talk about physical touch. Now, I know this one can be a little tricky because it's often associated with romance or sexuality, but the source material is careful to point out that it's not. It's about so much more than that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, physical touch as a love language is about non-sexual touches that convey care, comfort, connection. Think about a hug from a friend, a pat on the back, or holding hands with a loved one. These are ways of expressing affection and closeness through physical touch.
And the source even mentions how some people are just naturally more touchy than others, and it's not weird or inappropriate. It's just their way of communicating. I have a friend who gives the best hugs,
Yeah.
and it always makes me feel so loved and supported.
Yes. And it reminds us that we all have different comfort levels with touch.
Yeah.
So it's always important to be respectful of personal boundaries.
For sure.
But when it is someone's primary love language, those touches, those appropriate touches can be so powerful.
So powerful. And even Jesus used touch as a way of healing and showing compassion. And it wasn't just about the physical act itself. It was about that deeper connection that he established through physical touch.
Yeah, it's amazing to consider how something so simple as touch can convey so much.
Okay, so we've unpacked all 5 of these love languages. Words of affirmation, quality time, gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. And what's really interesting to me is I think we all experience love through each of these to some degree, but most of us have 1 or 2 that are really dominant.
Yeah, it's like our love language sweet spot.
Exactly. And that's what I think is so cool about this, is that once you understand what your primary love language is, and maybe the love languages of your close friends and family, you can start to communicate in a way that truly resonates with them.
It's about bridging that gap between how we express love and how the other person experiences it. And think about the impact that that has on your relationship.
I mean, it's huge. So I want to put this out to the listener. Which of these languages speaks to you the most? Take a moment and think about that. When do you feel most loved? And knowing that, how can you use this knowledge to better connect with the people in your life?
That's such a great question, because understanding your own WN love language is just the first step. But the real magic happens when you start to recognize and speak the languages of those around you.
And maybe that means being more intentional with your words, or carving out dedicated time for someone.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's about expressing your appreciation through those acts of service or those thoughtful gifts.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, the key is to make that effort to connect in a way that truly resonates with the other person.
Totally. Totally. It's like my little treasure chest of memories.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so acts of service, this is the next love language. What stood out to you about this from the source material?
For me, it was seeing love in action. Like, I think you were talking about it earlier, that image of someone who's exhausted, but still gets up to do that one chore so their loved one can rest.
Yes. It was just it was so powerful to me. That's love.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is just take something off of someone's plate.
Absolutely. And for someone whose primary love language is acts of service, that is going to mean more to them than 1,000 I love yous.
Right.
Like, it's about demonstrating love through those actions.
Yeah.
And again, it's not about grand gestures.
Right. Those everyday things.
Yeah, like you were saying, taking the trash out without being asked, or making coffee for your partner in the morning.
It's being thoughtful.
It's anticipating needs. It's about being a teammate. And going back to what we were talking about before with Jesus washing the disciples' feet, that was an act of service.
Yeah.
It wasn't about being a servant. It was about showing love and humility through action.
Yeah, a really powerful example. It makes you think, how often do we miss those opportunities to serve? You know what I mean?
Totally.
Okay, so 4 down, 1 to go. Let's talk about physical touch, which I know for some people can be a little bit of a sensitive topic because it often gets gets associated with romance or intimacy or sexuality.
For sure.
But the source material is really careful to point out that it's about so much more than that, right?
Right. So physical touch as a love language is about non-sexual touches that convey care, comfort, and connection. A hug from a friend, a pat on the back,
Yeah, I love that.
holding hands with a loved one,
Uh-huh.
all those little ways that you can just show affection.
The source material even mentioned how some people are just naturally more touchy than others, and it's not meant to be weird, it's not meant to be, invasive or anything like that. It's just their way of being. I have a friend who gives the best hugs, and
Oh,
it always makes me feel so seen and loved.
and it reminds us that everyone has different comfort levels with touch. So it's always important to, recognize that. Be
Absolutely.
respectful of personal boundaries.
Yes.
But when it is someone's primary love language, those touches, those appropriate touches can be so powerful.
And even Jesus used touch to heal and to show compassion. And it wasn't just about the act itself, it was about that deeper connection that he was establishing through physical touch.
Exactly. And it's just amazing to consider how something so simple as touch can convey so much.
So now we've unpacked all five: words of affirmation, quality time, gifts, acts of service, physical touch. What's so interesting to me is that I think we all experience love through each of these to some degree, but we all have one or two that are kind of dominant. Like they're just more important to us.
They speak to us more.
Yes.
What about you?
I think for me, quality time is huge.
Yeah.
Like I really resonate with that. I love that. Well, that's what's so cool about this. Once you understand what your primary love language is, and you can start to maybe, identify what the love languages of your close friends and family are, you can communicate in a way that truly resonates with them.
You're speaking their language. It's about bridging that gap between how we express love and how the other person experiences it.
Right. It's huge.
And that can have such a big impact on relationships.
Okay, so listener, which of these languages speaks to you the most? What is it for you? When do you feel most loved and appreciated?
Hmm.
And then, okay, knowing that, how can you use that knowledge to better connect with the people in your life?
That's a great question to ask yourself because understanding your own love language is just the first step. But it's about recognizing and speaking those languages of the people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that might look like, different things for different people. Maybe it means that you're more intentional with your words,
For sure.
or you carve out some really dedicated time to spend with someone. Maybe it's about expressing your appreciation through acts of service or those little thoughtful gifts, whatever it is. The key is to make that effort to connect in a way that truly resonates with that other person.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so great about this. It's not just for romantic relationships, it's for all relationships.
Right. Whether it's your partner, your family, your friends, even your colleagues, like understanding these love languages can really help you to build stronger, more authentic connections.
Absolutely. It's a game changer.
So, as we're kind of wrapping up this deep dive, I'm curious, what is the one big takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with? What's that nugget of wisdom that just sums it all up?
What really stands out to me, going back to the source material, is this idea that true love isn't about what we get.
Uh-huh.
It's about how well we understand and give in the ways that others feel most loved.
That is so good. And, it really is a challenge to shift our focus, like from our own needs and preferences to truly understanding the needs of someone else.
Yeah, it's about putting others first.
But the impact that it can have on our relationships is, it's huge.
Absolutely. And, sometimes it's less about those grand gestures and more about, those consistent everyday efforts to understand and speak the other person's language.
Right. Like maybe you start leaving little encouraging notes for your partner if you know that their love language is words of affirmation.
Yes.
Or maybe you schedule a regular tech-free family dinner. Like everybody puts their phone away, no distractions, and you just focus on that quality time together.
Yeah, create those opportunities for connection.
Exactly. It's about showing up for the people in your life in a way that really speaks to their hearts. And, it might feel a little awkward at first, but the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the more fulfilling those relationships will be.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. I hope that this deep dive has sparked some new insights for you and maybe even inspired you to take a closer look at your own love languages and those of the people you care about. Remember, love is a journey, not a destination. So keep learning, keep growing, and keep loving well. Thanks for joining us.